Alright, hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of a brand new series on this channel called 10-Minute Tactics, and today we're going to be taking a quick look at England's 2-1 victory in their opening game in the group stages up against Tunisia of the 2018 World Cup. Tunisia started off with their favoured 4-3-3 with a front three of Sliti, Khazri, Ben Youssef, Badri, Sassi, Skhiri were the midfielders, Ma'loul and Bron were the two fullbacks, with Mariah and Ben Youssef as the two centre-backs. England played in the 5-3-2 or 3-5-2 or 3-5-1-1 or 5-3-1-1 or whatever you want to call it, that we saw them play in previous games building up to the tournament, and most recently in that recent friendly against Nigeria. Pickford in goal with Walker as a right centre-back, Stones, Maguire, Young and Trippier, the two wing-backs. Henderson was in the defensive midfield role, the holding midfielder position, with Dele Alli and Lingard, who both had really decent seasons in the Premier League, playing as the two shuttlers. Raheem Sterling playing just off Harry Kane, who's the lone man up front. 4-3-3 wise for Tunisia, the idea was, play direct, counter-attack. In England, we're going to be looking to keep the ball. England had the better players, so Tunisia's game plan was to try and remain as defensively resilient as possible, try and hold on without conceding any goals, and then try and utilise the creativity of Sliti and the pace of Ben Youssef out on the right-hand side to try and counter-attack England. And most importantly, if Ma'loul or the other fullbacks can get forwards and help out the Tunisian wingers and create 2 versus 1 overloads in the wide areas, then that would potentially be something they can exploit and cause problems for the English with, because obviously England, packing the central areas with this formation, are vulnerable in the wide areas when the wing-backs push forwards. Unfortunately for Tunisia, though, in order to be able to do that, you do actually have to get into your opposition's half. You do actually have to try and get players into the opposition's final third in order to create them 2 versus 1 situations out wide. And to be honest, Tunisia didn't really manage to get out of their own half much. Now, one of the advantages of this 4-3-3 formation is the 3 that you get in midfield, as opposed to, for example, a more traditional 4-4-2. You have that triangle of 3 in the central areas, and it really helps you maintain ball possession. Unfortunately for Tunisia, though, down to how England played, down to this kind of free role that Raheem Sterling was playing just behind Kane, and the amount of deep runs Harry Kane was doing to link up with the midfield, England always maintained an extra man centrally, despite the 3 that Tunisia had in midfield. As we can see, they've got a bit of a diamond going on here. As well, when Harry Kane drops deep and takes defenders with him, it not only makes room for Sterling to run into, but also room for the 2 central midfielders to run into, and, it's a massive, the off-the-ball movement, massive part of how England are looking to play at this tournament, and I'm just saying this now, pay absolutely no attention to the numbers on the board. Now, due to the sheer numbers of England players in the central areas, that would often result in the Tunisian players, the wingers needing to track back centrally, fullbacks needing to come in narrow, and that was causing a lot of space to be left in the wide areas for the England wing-backs to essentially push up into and cause this very narrow Tunisian side problems. And that really is a significant part of the English game plan as to why they look to pack the central areas, and then obviously moving forwards once they get into the opposition's final third. If the ball does happen to fall to one of the 2 wide wing backs, theoretically there should be plenty of players making late runs into the box along with big old Harry Kane to get on the end of the crosses. If not, up against 2 centre-backs like this, and we'll take a look as to why Tunisia in the second half switched to a back 5 to bring in a 3rd centre-back and try and counteract the overflooding of the central areas that the England players were doing. The idea is to try and occupy the 2 centre-halves so that the likes of Dele Alli and Lingard and Sterling are able to make late surges into the box and overload these areas and create chances on goal and through ball opportunities, which is exactly really what we saw England do. Another reason as to why the wing-backs were so effective in a game like this and in this kind of formation is because the defensive team end up focusing so much on the central areas, the central players, as we, for example, see Real Madrid, or saw Real Madrid do a lot under Zinedine Zidane, playing their diamond centrally. It would create a lot of room to switch the ball from one side to another for the other overlapping wing-back to then cause problems. And that was also something that England found themselves on the receiving end of, which was, of course, for them a very good thing. Now, early on, a lot of England's chances came down the right-hand side. This is because Sliti naturally isn't a very defensive player. And starting off, Tunisia it almost looked like they were telling him not to try and track back as much because they wanted him to be that supporting attacking outlet to Khazri. But with the amount of chances England were creating, they did eventually go a little bit more conservative. It was clear that the 2 wing-backs, or the wingers, sorry, were trying to track back a little bit more to try and create this 2 versus 1 situation here. And even though the centre-backs were coming forwards to try and potentially leaving one behind to help out the wing-back and try and maintain possession here, because again of the nature of this formation and the freedom that these 2 players have, you'd often still end up with a 3rd passing option due to the flooding of the central areas. And Tunisia really were struggling to win the ball back and struggling to transition quickly to even take advantage of areas like this which were being exposed by England. And even when that would happen, they were pretty conservative early on in the game. It was very different to when they were throwing men forwards at the end, where when the defence move across, they were still trying to maintain 3. If he was going walkies, Henderson was so crucial in this game in terms of protecting his back 3. I almost said a back 4 there. With regards to late on in the game, the reason why I personally think Jordan Henderson had a really good game, I know a lot of people beg to differ, but Jordan Henderson's role here was to really try and protect the defence. And for me, he shone out the most late on in the game when England were really trying to push for a goal, regardless of whether you think, they were too negative or they could have done better. Players like Walker possesses great crossing ability, so we saw him going forwards a lot, leaving Stones really alongside Henderson as the two main defensive players left for England. Now, this made sense because Maguire was also rushing forward. Why was Maguire going forwards? He's big. If Walker can pick up the ball in a deep area here, across the ball, Maguire, late on in the game, was always up against a tired Tunisian side, was always going to be a threat going forwards. Or rather, this is Maguire, this is Walker with his crossing ability. So while he was playing centre-back, he still offers you a lot more on the pitch. Why was it a good idea to keep both Stones and Henderson back? Stones is probably one of the best ball-playing defenders in the world. You can say what you want about his defensive ability, but technically he's incredibly gifted for a central defender. And Jordan Henderson as well, he does this, he's been doing this for years, in terms of being a deep-line playmaker, very, very gifted player. And, when you're pushing so many men forwards, what you want is a kind of player who can recycle possession, pick that ball up, and play direct balls forwards. Tunisia, defensively, high line, in comparison to what you probably expect them to do. We saw that come into play from set pieces as well, if you were paying attention during the match, and regardless of the fact that they were terrible from defending set pieces, which obviously 2 corners was kind of the game plan for England, how they managed to unlock and get all 3 points in the end. We saw it from free kicks as well, where Tunisia would end up playing a very, very high line as well, and go with the zonal marking approach from corners, which really, to be fully honest, didn't really work well for them. But that's why having 2 players able to play direct passes into the space that was being left behind by the Tunisians within the final few minutes of the game, given the pace that Rashford obviously brought to the side as well, and the natural pace in this England team in general, players like Trippier playing, that's basically why Henderson was more effective than people may have realised on TV. That's what his role was, and in terms of the main half of the 90 minutes, he did his job really, really well. Ensured that he was working hard on the pitch, and just basically made sure that he was parrying in front of the defence, and basically ensuring that whoever was on the ball at the time always had an extra passing option to help England retain possession. Coming out for the second half, Tunisia really switched to a 5 at the back. Now, this was something that I was kind of expecting. I was wondering, actually, Tunisia were going to start off playing 5 at the back, simply because of how effective it was for Nigeria in that friendly building up to the World Cup against England. And the main reason why playing with 3 centre-backs is effective against this approach is because you defensively then play an extra man in the central areas, which means that, obviously, because England's emphasis is going to be on these late runners going forwards, on the movement of Harry Kane and Raheem Sterling running in behind, when you have that extra man defensively centrally, it basically means that the chances that they're going to be able to find space behind the 2 centre-backs is a lot more slim. Also means, for example, if England are attacking down this right-hand side, they always have 2 extra players to pick up any late runs into the box, because these guys will obviously move this way, and then you'll have these 2 who are playing a bit more of a freer role and are an extra insurance policy. And this was really a good approach from Tunisia. Now, if they were 1-0 down, I'm not sure if we'd have seen them go to this approach, or maybe we would have seen it, but we would have seen these 2 try and be a little bit more adventurous in terms of the fullbacks. But when Tunisia got their equalising penalty, to be honest, they didn't really go forward much in the second half, and I think they realised they were lucky not to be a good 2 or 3-0 down by half-time, and the game plan for them was to basically just try and remain as defensively resolute as possible, and try and hold on for the point, because let's be honest, they weren't really going into the game expecting any points anyways. One of the main reasons why Tunisia struggled to really move forwards from this wasn't necessarily because England played really well. In fact, England, while they had a very good first half for the reasons we discussed, they did struggle in the second half with players getting tired and whatnot. Rashford was a bit of a spark, with his great dribbling ability. I was really disappointed not to see Jamie Vardy come onto the pitch late on, and it makes me question whether or not England do have a plan B. We'll talk about that later on in the video. But it left Khazri up front, or Ben Youssef. Sometimes they were swapping, because obviously Khazri can also play out wide, and whoever the attacking outlet was for Tunisia, a lot of the time they'd win the ball back, play direct forwards, and basically, unless this guy wins a second ball or wins an aerial ball and then Tunisia pick up the second ball, they're not really going to be able to move out of their own half. And while we said Tunisia weren't defending that deep, at the end of the day, yes, they were playing with a high line, a much higher line than maybe should have played with, but when England were really applying the pressure, they were dropping deep and trying to hold on for their lives not to concede a goal. They just couldn't get the ball to the front man and play off him. So Tunisian problems, we already kind of discussed that defensively from corners, just go and take a look at the first goal. Obviously, look at the English players crowded around on the edge of the box. They'd obviously done their homework from set pieces. It was refreshing to see Harry Kane in the box, not the guy taking the corners, even though I think it would have been great banter if he had taken the first corner just to troll the fans back home. And it just goes to show how much of a threat Harry Kane can be from set pieces. But I don't think Tunisia really did themselves any favours. They looked very, very confused, trying to defend all sorts of set pieces. England were fortunate in the end to still obviously get 3 points, even though they deserved to win. But England need to be aware that the chances that they should have put away, granted, they probably should have had 2 penalties or at least 1 penalty. I'm not quite sure where VAR disappeared to. Other teams like Belgium in the tournament aren't going to be as clumsy trying to defend set pieces, so they will have to keep that in mind. And Tunisia are going to have to try and work on that kind of thing on the training ground, because if they are to stand the chance of getting anything against Belgium, then they can't afford to make the same mistakes up against players like Lukaku in the box, with players like Eden Hazard, who are going to be whipping fantastic corners and free kicks into the box. Now, where can England improve? Again, they need to really start they need to be more clinical in the final third. Stones, missed a sitter. Lingard really should have scored at least one. Rashford didn't swing his leg late on in the game for some strange reason. It didn't look like Lingard had actually yelled anything to him. It looked almost like Rashford was trying to be a little bit too fancy. And maybe those are signs of inexperience creeping into the side, because only two of the players in this whole England side, as far as I'm aware, have really even started in a World Cup before. But hopefully with time, things will improve, because on another day, if England had taken their chances, if they had gotten the penalties they should have had, the scoreline could have been embarrassing for Tunisia. And that wasn't necessarily down to England playing great. It was probably down to England playing well, but Tunisia also making a lot of defensive mistakes. And the 2-1 scoreline kind of makes it look like Tunisia actually played well, when in reality they didn't. Another problem for England going into the Panama game this Sunday is that I'm seeing reports that Dele Alli is potentially injured and might not be able to make that game. Now, from one perspective, I say, okay, give Rashford a chance. It'll be interesting to see how he plays in this kind of shadow striker / central midfielder role. I can't imagine him tracking back much, like maybe someone like Dele Alli is used to doing, or someone more like a Lingard is used to playing maybe a little bit deeper at Man United, and suits the role a little bit more than someone like a Marcus Rashford. Sterling needs to step his game up. I would have liked to see Jamie Vardy come on when England were chasing the goal. I'm not quite sure what the logic behind that was. It kind of felt like we could have potentially sacrificed, moved Rashford maybe out wide and gone with two up front and taken that risk defensively, because Tunisia weren't really getting out their own half, and even if they really wanted to, they only had the lone guy up front because they had everyone behind the ball. So it was disappointing not to see that. Makes me wonder whether or not Gareth has a plan B. I wasn't convinced with Rio Ferdinand at centre-back. It was something that I was kind of saying to people prior to the match, and his defending to give away the first Tunisian penalty, well, Tunisia's main penalty, was incredibly poor. I'm not quite sure what he was doing facing his own goalkeeper, facing Jordan Pickford. That's something they need to work on in the training ground, but we already discussed why, while he's not by trade a centre-back, what he brings to the side going forwards, which worked really well. But again, against better teams, they will exploit that and he will struggle. So we'll see how that develops with time. But overall, that's a massive win, really, what we saw the other day for such a young England side that, have years ahead of them to mature. There's no pressure on them, really, this tournament. For me, if they make it into the quarterfinals and get knocked out, that'll be on par with some of the legendary England sides or performances that we've seen in the past, so they can at least go home with heads held high. And really, in terms of the performance, it's probably the best I've seen England play in a very, very long time. What's important is that we do bear in mind that it was only Tunisia, and Tunisia didn't exactly play well, and it wasn't really because England were phenomenal. It was just because Tunisia defensively were all over the place, and England were able to exploit it. So that is it for this video. Now, if you enjoyed it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're wondering why this kind of thing is no longer digital and there's a camera going on, read the top comment below. Obviously, assuming you're familiar with my other tactical videos, and hopefully that will clarify a thing or two. And as always, thanks for watching.